We're going to take a little journey through the world that I have traveled and seen myself, where I have opened up my mind to so many different experiences. The adventure of travel is so exhilarating. You'll want more. It's a drug. It's not something that you'll say, I've had enough. It's something you'll say, I want more. And every time you come back, you need to absorb what you have taken in, and you need to stop and think about what it's done to you, because you do change whether you like it or not. And that's what I love about travel. You get to see things that you normally don't if you sit in your backyard. Welcome to another episode of Travel Tales with Devika. Today we're going to take a culinary tour, but it's going to be very different, very unusual. I'm going to introduce to you my new friend. He is Chef Srijith Gopinathan, but you can call him Sri. It's much easier, even for me. Wonderful human being. I'm not going to give an elaborate introduction because this is a human being, a soul who is very, very humble, hasn't forgotten his roots, still remembers where he comes from, still remembers the two amazing women in his life, his grandmother and mother, and now his mother-in-law, whom he gives a lot of credit to for what he is today. Sri comes from India, and what I love about him is he uses Indian ingredients, and he uses it very simply and creates very unusual and exotic dishes, combining with the flavors of San Francisco. Sri, it is a pleasure to meet you. I would like to know a little bit more about you. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Deepika. Nice to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Srijith. I have been cooking in America, mostly in San Francisco and Bay Area, for almost 15 years now. And the funniest part is until last year or so, I've only cooked in one place in this country. And only in the recent past, I just ventured out a little bit more, aside from helping my friends and all these things here, open places and all, etc. So I am the chef and director of food and beverage at Taj Campton Place. We have a restaurant called Campton Place restaurant, which is located at the Taj Campton Place Hotel. So basically, we both have the same names. Here I am. After 15 years, I'm still with it. Just that COVID has given me a break. Not that I asked for it.
Hey, I have to thank COVID because I would never have met you. I didn't even know you existed. That's the funny thing. And I remember when I spoke to you a couple of days ago, like you mentioned 3 or 4 days ago, I had an interaction with Melinda. She's my sales rep for the Taj group of hotels. And I did something for CGH Earth at Kumarakam. And she said, hey, what about the Taj? So I said, give me a call. She said, do you know we have a 2-star Michelin chef? I said, really? So that's how I got to know about you. And it's amazing that you have retained your star for 8 consecutive years. That's amazing. And that's a feat in itself. And you got coveted 2 stars for excellence in your field. And I really admire you. And this is one of the few moments in my life that I'm so proud to be an Indian and to know somebody who's done something. You are amazing. To have watched you cook today and throw things together and not even think about it. You are a magician.
Yeah, I'm no magician. I'm just a cook and trying to get perfect every day. But perfection, like everybody says, perfection is never achieved, but we keep trying it. Someday we'll reach that.
We do. You know what I love about you is, and especially about your culinary skills, you still retain your Indian spices. You still find them very exotic, right? How do you complement them with your ingredients that inspire you when you go to the farmer's market in San Francisco?
So I have always had this question, great question, but for me, season matters a lot. What's available around me at that point matters a lot. So which is season? Combining comes as a second step. First, what's available, because if I use what's available during that season, number one, there are 2 important things. One is it tastes better. So, for example, take summer. Today I was cooking, so I can remember a few things. I would never use corn in winter. Even though we have dried corn, grate corn, all that, I would never use it unless it's really necessary for some purpose. But I would never use heirloom tomatoes when fall or winter or even early spring. So that's one key thing. I just find out the good ingredients. I just have a rapport with good farmers. I just make a couple of people happy who provide me producers. So that's a key to good cooking, I feel. So from there, then now, how do you work with spices? So that's actually easy part, because that piece is I achieved it long time ago because I grew up eating Indian food. So blending spices, bringing in spices together to an ingredient is not that big of a challenge. But the important challenge here is to make sure you don't overwhelm, you don't overpower the beautiful ingredient what you get in locally. So those two things together, and drawing that fine line is the most important thing. That is the only challenge I think, to get that together into a dish on the plate.
But I want to ask you, I know that when I learned to cook, it was basically watching my mother. And she'd say, okay, get me the onions, chop the onions. Then she'd say, okay, watch me debone the chicken, a whole chicken. So I'd watch and she'd make me do it. And it's never like this is right or that's wrong. She'd just make me continue doing it. Is that something how you learned when you were growing up? It was just something you did for fun? And what led you to cooking?
Yeah, cooking. I mean, I grew up in a joint family. We had so many people at home, and we had a huge old style South Indian home. So many little rooms, big house. So a lot of rice paddies and bananas and plantains and all kind of stuff. So I can talk about it for ages. Long story. And so I still remember. I can't just skip that through easily for me, because buffaloes and all kind of stuff. So,
just go back and get the chicken.
Yeah, I know, chicken and all kind of stuff. Cooking was an important thing, not just for us, because we also used to have people work in our orchards and paddy fields and all those things. You don't have to be rich, or you don't have to be in village, in rural. People who own farm, and we're not rich people. We just have a lot of land. I mean, it's cheap land. We just keep basically agriculture is our main thing. So a lot of people work, and we cook a lot of food. I mean, our kitchens are not like a little four burner oven, range, and then small oven. No, that's not how it works. We have a huge wood-fired stuff going on in one corner and the other side, all those stuff. So that was always fascinating for me. Cooking was defined by this whole process of fire happening in huge, we call it patilas, or what do you call it,
vessels.
Big vessels going on. I mean, all kind of stuff. I mean, heat, so much smoke, because we never had LPGs and gases and all that. Nothing was it. Overall cinema of it, I mean, the whole the feature of it was amazing. And that is what fascinated me. And plus, the other side of it is you also enjoyed eating. I mean, eating was of course, my passion.
Yeah.
These two things came definitely together, and that's probably what made it intriguing for me, and also it created that interest in me. But it never in my life, for the longest time, until I'm 18 or 20 years old, I never thought I would become a chef or a cook or whatever it is in the commercial scale. That was all innings of my life. So this whole interest was always there, because I was always intrigued by seeing how this fire transforms something which looks this way to this way. You know what I mean? How does it change the whole thing? How does the texture change? How does it become hard? How does it become soft? I mean, fire can do so many things. It's such a powerful medium, and it can do so many things to a food. So it changes so much, and it makes it sometimes tastier. Sometimes it makes it taste less. Those things were intriguing for me. And that was the beginning of all this drama I do now.
So it was when you went to hotel management. Is that how you really got into cooking? Is it because they steered you into it, or is it something you went on your own?
No. Yeah, hotel management is something which I decided to take as a profession. I thought I would become some kind of a, what is it called? Somebody who will manage a hotel. That's what I thought when I joined. Maybe into business, maybe into sales marketing, maybe into taking care of the front office or reservation, or I don't know. I had not much of a clue then. It was one of those things I thought, okay, this would kind of fascinated me. I knew cooking was part of it. I knew I would get to eat a lot of food. That
was the catch.
It was a good catch there. Like the John Lewis saying, good trouble, being in good like we have a good catch there. So I did, cooking was one of the things which happened on every week. We had, I believe we had 2 cooking classes and 4 theory or whatever it is. So we, first year and the second year and the third year, then we went for an internship for 6 months. That's still the deal. I never seen such a, I mean, at home we had all those things. I've never seen such a sophisticated, commercialized method with cooking with so much methodology. You know, in hotels, big banqueting, you do like Indian weddings are, it's almost like a Trump rally. Indian. You know what I mean? It's a huge stuff. So to cook for an Indian wedding, it's an art. You know, you just have to be something amazing, or you're cooking for like 30, 40 years to get that rhythm of cooking. So all those things definitely fascinated me. And see, every time there is a layer which is added to your brain, you know, about this, okay, this is what I want to do. And then you go somewhere else and see something more, and one more layer. Okay, now my layer got thickened a little more. These things definitely added up. And finally, after third year of my degree, I finished my bachelor's, and I thought that this is it.
Oh no, for your mother. Because I know Indian mothers want their sons to be engineers, doctors, lawyers, businessmen.
My mother was certainly not the happiest person when I started this, and now she's pretty happy. Now she's very happy about it, and she's one of the first people who expresses her happiness, saying that, okay, I saw you in that, I saw you here, saw you in this one of these programs on this thing in the newspaper, whatever it is. So it definitely makes her happy for sure now.
Does she understand your Michelin stars, or she has no?
I'm not sure how much she understands. She does understand a little bit, but she knows something. It's something good.
It's good.
She knows it's something amazing and all those things, but I don't know how much she understands. I don't try to convince her that this is a big deal, or I never told myself that. I always thought that it's every day. You know, you just cook, you just do better, and just keep going. You know, you can't just be sitting on something saying that I achieved this and this is it. This is not a lifetime achievement. It's you get it for what you do today, and it might change for tomorrow.
Well, I can say one thing. 1 star I will give you is for your humbleness and your great sense of humor and it's a pleasant, what should I say, ambience that you create. And the 2nd star is your creativity, the food that when you put it on a plate. I watched you today, and it was so mesmerizing. I was jealous. I'll be honest with you. And I wanted to say, I have to figure out how I'm going to beat this guy now because I'm not artistic.
I did not know you were actually on the Zoom. I'm glad you were there. That's awesome. Yeah. I came about it later. Okay.
Yeah. But I want to ask you, because Indian food, people have a misnomer about it. They say curries. I love Indian curries. I like chicken tikka masala. And they say that's Indian food. And I go, no. How, curries, when we had a conversation on the telephone, you and me, you talked about curries saying they think it's hot. And then I tell my clients, it's not hot. It's the spices that you use. How can we change people's concept of Indian food? Because every region is so different. The spices in each region in India can be found in one region, but in another region, you cannot find it. Even the chilies are so different. That in itself is a story.
True. First of all, I mean, the whole thing of, I still remember, not sure who was that. I think it was Singapore's, the founder of Singapore, or the first premier of Singapore. He once said that India is not a country. India is countries, which is so true. I mean, it can never be. How can India be one country? It's a borderline which was drawn by a bunch of British people who just drew a line around it, saying that, okay, this is India and this is Pakistan. It doesn't work that way. Culture comes with so much work being put in it, so much struggle which has gone inside it, so much effort being taken. So that's how it's all created. So these things cannot be erased. I mean, food habits and cuisines all comes with that. It's part of that big baggage. It's a good baggage to have. So it's not something which you can just change overnight. We call it the so-called the India, the big country. One part of the country does not understand the food of the other part of the country. Only 4 or 5 dishes. Ask a normal person, a layman in Delhi, to name 5 South Indian dishes. He won't be able to do it. He's going to dosa. That's it. And that's about it. So it's much beyond it, much beyond. There probably people won't even be able to say how many states are in South India, because it's such a complex country. I mean, so much going on. So cuisine is it's extremely complex. Now we are talking about taking that and bringing it to a different country that is in West, say London, or say UK, or say USA, or so anybody. So that's going to take a long time. Probably in your and my lifetime, we won't see that kind of understanding. It'll take a long time. But that's what all people like us are doing, to introduce in bits and pieces what has not been introduced. Unfortunately, there are like 6 things which got introduced in early 50s or 60s, and people started really moving towards the West. Here, I mean, when I say West, not in Europe, in America, where the mass started moving only in like Second World War and post that. Before that, nothing. So at that point, the doctors and the medical professionals, all those people, they came here and they started cooking for themselves. And they figured, how do I, those days, definitely those doctors and those, what are they called, the higher ranked people never cook at home, because they always had people cook at home.
Yes. That
became a problem for them. So now they realize, how do I do it? So we need to create some kind of a restaurant or some kind of an outlet to eat food. That's how these restaurants propped up. It's not that intention was not feeding Westerners. It was for them. And they decided to cook dishes for themselves. Right. And that's how you always see this basic 5 things, chicken tikka masala and samosa, and 5 things comes out. Yeah. So unfortunately, it took a long time to change that. And plus, another problem is educated chefs did not travel to India. Chefs were, first of all, never educated those days. Now it's a different story. In the last 30 years or so, it's a different story. We have hotel management schools, culinary education, all. So those people never did research. There was no Googles or the internet way to figure out something if you need to figure out. So it was all through sometimes books. Even the books, olden days, chefs did not write books because they did not want to share the recipes. So the whole lot of complications, we can talk about this for 10 years, we won't be able to finish. So these people, people who created little places to eat here, created just for themselves. It was not meant. And only in the last 20 or 30 years, educated chefs started traveling across the world, started spreading their talents across the world and adding things to the menu which has not been eaten before. Things like, even take Bengali cuisine, take Assamese cuisine. I don't even know if I can catch hold of one Indian guy, forget about anybody else, and say that, give me 5 Assamese dishes. Impossible. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. So the unexplored, untapped stuff is so much there back home. This is a long shot situation. There's a lot. And the good thing is, you'll never run out of dishes. For the next 100 years, probably we can keep making new things. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But it's very interesting because I have been to many, many Indian restaurants, and I've yet to find one that I really liked. There is one in Diamond Bar. It's called Dilliwala. I like that restaurant because the gentleman who's a chef there, Manny, his kebabs are amazing. I love his kebabs. His food is great. And of course, he spoils me. I walk in, he knows my wines, he knows my what food I like. It's there on the table. I don't have to ask for it. So you're spoiled. Why would I go somewhere else? But it's just, what I find is that in a lot of Indian restaurants, it's very limited.
True.
It's very limited. So they really don't give you a culinary experience unless you go to India and you really experience it and you see what it is. Because when you say South Indian food, for me, it's like what pongal, it's dosa, sambar, rasam. But there's so much more, because when I went to Gopinath, the tiny little township, and the food that I ate there, I didn't, during my time, we didn't have Brussels sprouts. And And then I came across this dish, Brussels sprouts with tomato paste. And it was very interesting. So now you get Brussels sprouts in India, which we never had before. So it's very, very interesting to see how we're incorporating Western vegetables, Western cuisine, transforming it into the Indian palate.
Very
And I find, you know what I like about your cooking? It's simple. It can be done at home. So I love cuisines that are easy and I don't have to do anything that's too complicated. I find that cooking to be, in my opinion, my humble opinion, I'm not a chef, but I find it very overrated. It doesn't impress me.
I mean, yeah, I agree with you on that. The reason why, I mean, this is my personal opinion again. Sometimes I feel one of the reasons I empathize chefs who do that. I've also done it at some point, trying to elevate it by actioning something into the game, which is, I think it is also because it has taken a long time to educate the Western palate how things are. Like in US, so much option. It's very difficult to go tell that, hey, go try this new little cuisine from India, from a certain place in India, and try it. If we try to do that particular place in an authentic way, I don't think we are at a point where we can gather enough people to dine at that restaurant. So what happens here is, from the financial side of it, they struggle by doing it. So that's one of the reasons why people back off from doing anything creative.
Mm-hmm.
Because to do something groundbreaking, there is a huge risk. I mean, obviously, for example, Mangalorean cuisine, what a tasty cuisine it is. Bengali cuisine, for that matter. How many Bengali restaurants do you have here?
You don't. Then
it's difficult. First of all, Bengali cuisine is different. It's distinct. It has its own personality.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we try to do something like that. The fear of people, proprietors who try to do the restaurant, or the chefs who cook in the restaurant is just going to work, because how many people who really understand this? And there, everything starts. Then you basically start mixing and matching and adjusting and everything. That's where it loses a lot. The only thing which can fix that is time, when people start understanding and the population start getting it. For example, when I came in 2007 or so, it was always butter chicken and dal makhani and all those things. Naan is the most exotic Indian dish they've ever seen in Western world. So in 2007 or so, 8 or so, one of the Indian restaurants opened up called Dosa here. And even that was not like full on authentic, but they did a decent job. They did a very good job with their restaurant food and all these things. I still remember my friend of mine, it's funny, and 15 years ago or 18 years ago, a chef whom I really look up to, Chef Srijith from Quilon, who was also part of Taj hotels in London. When he opened Quilon, it is purely southwest of India cuisine, which basically it goes up from down Kerala to up Maharashtra kind of a thing. It's southwest of India cuisine. A lot of seafood, a lot of... So when he opened the restaurant, it's basically a first Southern Indian kind of a thing in London at that point. And people came to dine. He invited so many critiques, and some of the best critiques came to it. They all ate, and they gave everybody said one person, he still jokes about it, and we laugh. He said that these guys have had amazing experience. That, Sriram, one thing you need to do is you need to keep it a little more authentic. Where is the naan on the menu? So Sriram was shocked. He said, naan doesn't make my cuisine authentic, because I'm not from north of India. I'm not from Delhi, or I'm not from, I don't have a Persian influence or an Afghani influence into my cuisine. So why would I have naan on the menu? So that's still happening in America. So we have a little more time on that.
I think it's going to be like Chef Gordon, who just recently went to India and did a show there. It would take someone like him to really show the authenticity of Indian cuisine. I think it would take a foreigner, someone of their own tribe, to tell them that this is what it's about. Because that was such an interesting episode that I watched. I think it was on Travel Channel. He was really taken aback, and he said, this is really spicy. And it was so simple. How do you cut back on the spice? You squeeze some more coconut milk into the food. So there are ways of cutting back on spices. There are ways of supplementing things.
True.
Right?
Respond to your first point. You said that it's funny. It's actually embarrassing for chefs like us who are all, so true. You said that right. I mean, it's like the yoga, I always think about yoga. I never practiced yoga when I was in India, or I never did yoga when I was growing up, even though yoga existed it and very much existed there, but we did not do it. It took us the Western world to put it up there, to say that yoga is amazing, for us to just look back, oh shoot, we need to do yoga now.
Yeah.
So it's so funny. I mean, it's the same thing. And now it takes an English guy to talk about authenticity of Indian cuisine.
It is. It is. And, it was interesting because they showed this lady in the village. She was in the coconut. Today, somebody said, where can we get shredded coconut? And I'm thinking, shredded coconut, I do that at home. You have the thing and, the blade, and you do it by hand. That's how I was brought up to do it. And so when he saw this lady do it, he was really amazed. He's like, my God, what is she doing? But that is authenticity. My husband tells me, oh, you get the pre-ground ginger and the pre-ground garlic. And I go, no, but I'm so accustomed to having my mortar and pestle and doing it by hand. That's the way I'm going to do it. That's the way I was brought up. I grind my own masalas, my own spices. I think there's certain things that will not change, but I find that even my friends who've been to India, I just took a media group to India, they love Indian cuisine. They're amazed. And they say they grind their own, they do everything from scratch too. So the prepackaged stuff is now going out of style. I see that.
One side of it is going out, and then in the other side of it is actually coming in also. It's in and out, I would say. There are places which is they have started using, and they find their own sources. They actually give recipes and just get them made in certain areas where it's difficult to find labor. To get it, all those things. So that's a revolving door. It's going to be in and out.
But it's funny because you were talking about in your cooking demonstration today, and I have a story to tell you. You were talking, when you did the cooking demonstration, you were talking about Ayurveda, and your grandfather practiced that.
No, that was, he practices yoga. And yes, it's funny, my wife is an MD in Ayurveda, actually speaking. So my father-in-law actually is a proper yogi. He does a lot of yoga, and he also, he actually practices yoga. He teaches yoga. He also does a lot of, he doesn't believe much in Western medicine. Right. That's what the thing is. So he tries to avoid Western medicine. For all the right reasons. I mean, if I had a choice, I would not use two, because it's right. Western medicine is a scam. I mean, unfortunately, I have to say that. So, I was saying that was him. Yeah, basically, I was talking about turmeric and black pepper story. Yeah, turmeric, obviously, we all know it's an anti-inflammatory. They say that it is pretty much a cure for almost anything and everything. If you cut your finger, we used to throw turmeric on it. In the morning we have turmeric milk, and before you sleep you have turmeric milk. I mean, all kind of turmeric. Today it's a fashionable thing in United States to have turmeric latte.
Yes. It's funny because at night I keep a glass of water next to my bedside table. So my husband told me, put a pinch of turmeric in there. So I do that now. So I've been doing it for the last couple of years now. So in the morning, that's the first thing I drink when I wake up. So it's very interesting how we go back to our roots.
It's extremely important. The honest fact, everything, I just look back. Sometimes especially time like this, when you sit down and just think about it, how things were before and what we did. Even the farmers market, Deepika. Even the farmers market scenario, it's such an exotic thing here. Everybody goes on the Sundays, everybody goes on a Saturday. It's also exotic to me here, but if you really look back, farmers market was an everyday morning thing and everyday evening
in
thing.
India.
In India. It's we destroyed it by bringing in supermarkets.
When I was young, I remember I had to wake up at 4 a.m. every day. And my job was the milkman would come to our building with his cow. And I had to stand there and make sure he didn't mix it with water and watch him milking the cow and get the fresh milk from him. That's how I grew up. That's how I grew up. The vegetable guy would come. Yeah. The vegetable guy would come with his cart and we'd buy fresh vegetables. So all of this organic and all, that's how we grew up. We go to the market. I want this chicken. I want this hen. He'll kill it in front of us, pluck it, do whatever he needed to do, and he'd give it to us. So this is nothing new for us. It isn't.
It is true because I yet it's such a you reminded me something because we used to have cows in our thing. We have a milkman come to milk our cows and our goats. We had goats at home. Goat's milk and goat's cheese is an exotic thing here. Over there, it was a very thing which is available right there. I mean, you know.
It's very interesting. I have a very interesting story to tell you. I had taken a media group many, many years ago. My husband led the group. And one of the ladies, I hate Indian food. This is what she said. I don't want Indian food. I don't like spices. I don't like black pepper, nothing. She comes back and finds out that she's got cancer. Her American doctor said, you have to have khichdi. That's India. And khichdi, you know, it's a mix of rice and lentil, the moong dal, and a little bit of vegetables, all cooked with different spices.
Turmeric.
And that's what she ate. Can you imagine now today, in the Western world, doctors are prescribing Ayurvedic methods of eating?
Yeah, but the only thing they do is doctors are prescribing it, but they do it slightly in a sneaky way. They do not want to promote anything Ayurveda, but they want to use it. So they basically try and sneak things in.
Yes.
And the Western world is so scared of touching any of this Chinese medicine as well as Indian medicine, because they know these are permanent cure. I mean, they're like going back to 30s and 40s when we used to buy a car for life. And now we buy a car for 5 years. Those days, the bodies are meant to be living. It doesn't matter how many years you live, you lived all those years healthy and happy, you know. Today we have life, we probably live longer than before, but we live a miserable life.
Yeah. Then this is where I want to come back to you is when you do your cooking, do you go back to the ancient art of cooking, Ayurveda, and use that principle in your cooking or no?
Honestly, I haven't got to that point, but in the commercial world of cooking, whatever comes in as a natural process, of course, it's that I don't destroy it. I use the spice blends, I use the right kind of mixes. All those things are perfectly fine. I don't mix certain, all those things are fine. But I don't take a recipe based on Ayurveda, not yet. But that's something which always has intrigued me, something always has fascinated me. I definitely will do it. It's funny, recently somebody from LA actually had contacted me to do something what you just said. I don't want to disclose that right now because through yet. Do similar to that. So if the day I have the confirmation, you will be the first person to know it.
Oh my God, I'll be there.
So it's a very interesting thing. But the problem with all those way of doing things, you have to be either do it properly in an authentic, right way, or don't do it. Let's not get in the middle of it and try to patch up with all kind of stuff here and there. That's not good. Then why? It's waste of my time and waste of the people who are spending money on that.
Talking about that, let's go to fusion. We talked about that before during our telephone conversation, and I don't think I went too deeply with it with you. But I had said to you, fusion is a very old word. Correct. It was there when people traveled from one country to another. For example, when the Persians came, they brought their kebabs, and in India, of course, we love our spices, so we added to it. So we elevated that dish. What do you think? I personally feel the word fusion has been overused because it was always there. It's nothing new.
Yeah, I think number one, first of all, it's all branding, you know. People use this word, it's like branding. It's like you're giving a name to something. Personally, I don't use the word fusion, but the very reason why I don't use the word fusion is because that is pretty much the essence of cooking itself. The idea of fusion, had it not existed, then cooking wouldn't have got this far at all. We would be eating fish over the fire and a piece of lemon juice. That's how we would be eating, you know. We would be eating proper food. The idea of the evolution of a cuisine is fusion. It is the how things evolved, how things got paired up, how things got together, how things are meant to be eaten together. All those things are part of fusion, not entirely, a lot of it. a lot of good food today we see, a lot of tasty food we see. I would say it's a combination of evolution one side, on the other side fusion. It's basically these two things coming together. Yes, Punjab had the authentic Punjabi cuisine is, I believe it is vegetarian. It's not, they were all vegetarians. So non-vegetarianism came in later in the stage, when invasion happened, when the Mughals came in, when the Persians came in. I mean, those. So now look at Punjabi cuisine. It's an amazing, tasty, awesome cuisine. So think about it. So that happened, and the generation passed, and that became our cuisine. It's become Punjabi cuisine. Yeah, mostly the biggest fusion happened in that central area of top central, basically down from Kashmir and the Delhi and that big area is where all the fusion thing majorly happened. Everything else, it mostly happened from people traveling for business. People traveling for merchants coming back from, for example, the Chettinad cuisine is definitely something to it.
Yeah.
Chettinad cuisine is a lot to do with people traveling because, first of all, it's more creative than any other Southern Indian cuisines. They try to do things differently. They have molds cut out for certain dishes. There are way they wrap it, the way they. I mean, there is definitely an influence of some kind of an either somewhere to Malaysia or one of those places they bring in stuff. So there is definitely travelers influence them a lot. Definitely. And same thing with if you look at so many things here, if you look at Kerala cuisine and Sri Lankan cuisine, I mean, it's so clear. These guys have lived together for a long time, or these guys jumped out of the ship while they're on their way to somewhere from Sri Lanka, and they jumped into India, or vice versa from India to Sri Lanka. Something has happened.
Right.
So it is fun. I mean, fusion has been happening for now in recent past, when the world of internet, world of communication clarity, so much more communication, these words we've started noticing these words more. The word fusion is now something which, when you come from from a country to, mostly you travel towards Western country for better life and better money and all those things. So when you come here and start putting those two regions together, then explicitly they call it fusion. The word fusion comes into word, or vice versa when people travel from here to India and do it. In last 20 years or so, the word fusion now has become a little boring. At the same time, it has also become non-authentic. And that's also taken the turn. Well, when you say fusion or fusion, that means it's probably not very tasty, probably not right kind of a feeling. When you have had experience of having bad food and they call it fusion, then it has a bad meaning. I mean, then people that gets stuck in people's mind, and they said, no, fusion I don't eat, and everything.
Right.
When fusion is done right, when things are mixed, I don't want to use the word fusion, but I'm saying when the cuisines are mixed well and put together well, it perfectly works. As long as you are drawing that fine line is drawn well and kept well, and the integrity of what you're using from one cuisine to the integrity of what you're using in the other cuisine, if you bring it closer together and just make a nice dish, perfectly fine. But don't try to overdo things. Some try to overly overdo it. So that is where it loses everything. It loses the protein or the main ingredient integrity loses, and at the same time the sauce or the spice blend, that also goes up. It becomes almost lose instead of win-win. The whole idea of fusion is to make it a win-win, so make it a hybrid variety. Make it a better dish. Most of the time it fails. That's why that word is kind of scary.
It is. Have you ever made a dish where you thought it was going to be a fusion dish and it comes out totally different and you go, okay, this is a no-no? I don't mean to put you in a bad spot.
And cooking is always about thinking out of the box. And when it comes to cooking, is always, you expect failures to happen. And you make course corrections, you make adjustments. So that's always the case. Unless you're doing the same dish what you did 35 years ago, you bring in some black dal, urad dal, and just soak it, then simmer it, then add your spices. And I mean, those things, you know what you're doing. So you're not doing anything new. But in those cases, don't mess with that. But when you're doing something different, so you tend to do mistakes, and that's perfectly fine. So that has happened to me so many times. Either I say that, oh, this is not working out, forget about it, or close the chapter for the day, and I come back next day and just rework on it. Because the same day, your brain is always lingering around the same idea, what you failed on. So you won't succeed by doing it. Next day I come and just come with another idea and fix it. That's what I do.
I have noticed that at the Taj Campton, you being the head chef there, I noticed that your menus constantly change.
Yes.
Depending on the season and what's available. And that's what I like, is the flexibility that you have. So you're not very rigid in if I go, let's say this summer, next summer it could be something totally different.
Completely different. Totally different. Yeah. I mean, that's the idea of Campton Place. Is a very, our restaurant is, what is it called? It's an kind of an exclusive, different kind of restaurant. It's not something which you would find in every city or every state or every country where an Indian food is taken slightly into a different level. And we try, and while we keep authenticity of it, but not authentic as what you get back in India, at the same time, we give a lot of importance for what's available in the area. Within that 90, 100 miles radius, whatever we get in during that time of the year, that's what we use. And that is our specialty. I don't want to boast about it saying that we did some rocket science over that. Our specialty is to use the best ingredients, use what is available in town, what is available in next to you. What is that stuff? Say seafood, say meat, say vegetables, say fruits, say herbs. What tastes good today? I feel that that's what you should do. So don't try to import it from Peru or Australia, where I'm here and they're in winter over there. And okay, let's get some winter ingredients from Peru because we can do something exotic. That's not exotic. That is not exotic for us, because for us, exotic is what is available right here, right now. Not something which is we are trying to grow. There is a reason why nature has this all cut out for us. It's not because it just decided to do it because it felt like doing it. I mean, every time we've burned our hands so many times. Every time we go against the nature and try to do things of our human beings over smartness. We have created speed and productivity in a bigger way, but it did not go well for us in long run. It always went wrong. You tried to create GMO was one of the the most beautiful things or exotic things of the time. We created so many more stuff in so much less time. What happened? I mean, today we are running away from it.
Right.
I mean, all those things, it's always good to do what is available next to you and what is available at that point, and create stuff with that. I mean, that is what I would say what we do at Campton Place. I don't think we do anything crazy and unbelievable, but definitely clean stuff. Of course, some creativity goes in, some hard work goes in.
I want you to talk about your signature dish before we end this program, because I have something to add to that I did my research and I found out something.
And so we have very few signatures because most dishes changes. So we have a couple of dishes which are signatures, which basically stays for a long time. That's what signatures means. So this is a dish basically which I always say this dish was my tribute to the city, which I call now my home. And when I came from my real home to here, I thought I should do something to remember for myself and look back and say that this is where we came from and this is how it was when I came here, and now this is how it is today. That dish can evolve, but that dish won't change as long as I'm cooking. The dish is basically a very simple street food. It's basically back home we call it dahi puri, basically yogurt. Puri is bread and dahi is yogurt. That's pretty much it. And so that I took it into a slightly different level by giving it a very San Franciscan look to the dish, but keeping the taste. When you eat that dish, you pretty much taste the same thing what you tasted back home, except few adjustments I've made to the temperatures because I like chaat to be cold.
Yes.
So to keep it crispy and cold, I couldn't keep it longer in the refrigerator because it gets soaked. So instead I made some ice out of mint chutney. So it's a combination of tamarind chutney, mint chutney, fresh mint, yogurt, and we use things like puffed rice and stuff like that. I made some puffed rice and puffed quinoas into chickpeas for like little bites. We like sweetness in a chaat, so we use that. So it's a combination of several textures and several layer of flavors. That is chaat, right? Chaat is about so many layer of flavors. You feel sweet, sour, salty, minty, spicy, so much going on in that. So I did everything in that. I just presented as if I am serving a little flower pot,
Yes.
little terracotta flower pot, and build everything inside it. On top of it, I thought that what reminds me of San Francisco is, for me, I live near Golden Gate Park. So I see always a lot of vegetation, a lot of fruits, vegetables all over the place. I thought that I should create a kind of a version of a Golden Gate Park on top of it. This sounds very complicated, but the dish looks very simple. It's like a pot, it's like a flower pot. And then I thought about it. What is big in San Francisco? 2-3 things, if you have to remember: the Golden Gate Bridge, the park, the fog, all these things. So I thought, I obviously cannot do a Golden Gate Bridge on it. That doesn't work out. so I thought I should just give it a little fog in there. That's when I thought, okay, maybe I should use some. I didn't have an idea what to do. So I said that, okay, I'll use some dry ice, something like that to make. I typically don't like to fancy a dish by adding something for the sake of adding it. But this, I thought, makes sense. It synced with the idea of being in San Francisco, because I live in Sunset. I see fog all the time. Mist all that is one of the things. So finally, when the dish finishes, it's like a chaat with the little baby vegetables standing up like a garden, and then you have little fog going around it. And when you're eating it, you're really eating a dahi puri.
Yes. But I read somewhere that as I was doing my research today, one of the servers, he forgot to fill the jug. So when he had to create the fog, nothing came out. And of course, not losing a beat, with a great sense of humor, he said, "It's a hot day." There's no fog today. Which I thought was great. But it goes to show you that you are such an easygoing guy, and that the people who work with you also have a sense of humor. And that's what makes Taj Campton so great to dine there.
That's a good ending, I must say. I mean, that's a joke I always crack, which is actually very funny, because I remember the guy goes with, we have everything set up in a tray, and we have this dish, and when it goes, the server already has fixed up its little warm hot water, and dry ice goes in it, you pour it right on the top of it, just comes up. And this guy went there, he picked up the tray by some mistake of this thing. He picked up the wrong tray, and then he went to the tray for the next order, and he picked it up one order before that. Obviously does not have water, because water is added last minute, hot water. Yes. He picked up the tray, went over, he just poured it, and he just left the dish, explained the whole thing. We always explain it, and then he poured it, he kept pouring it. He thought it's less, and just kept pouring it, and there's nothing coming out of it. Mm-hmm. And then the guest asked, "So where is the fog? You explained about fog for like 2 minutes. Where is the fog?" It's a warm day. It doesn't happen every day. But he made a point to come back and apologize to me as well as to the guest, and he made a point to make the fog happen. But yeah, that was a good recovery, I thought.
I thought so too when I read it. But Sri, I want to ask you, if people want to come to Taj Campton, can they do a private dinner and have you orchestrate the meal?
We do it. We've done it before. We've done it many times. We do sometimes we do partial buyout. We call it, saying that one corner of the restaurant gets bought out and just do a private dining kind of a thing. Or we also have an upstairs dining, which is a little challenging to go upstairs, but yeah, we can make it happen. So we always do it. Yeah, we are just hoping that there'll be a day very soon we can open up the restaurant.
Yeah. But do you also, if I had a client and they said to me, Devika, I want to meet Sri because I watched this podcast with you and him, and we really are intrigued and we want to do a cooking session with him. Is that possible or no?
Oh, absolutely. Why not?
So it can be done at the Taj Campton.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Sri, I want to thank you so much for your time. You are a very generous person. You're very humble. And from the bottom of my heart, I'm so proud to be an Indian. Thank you.
Thank you.
And it's such a pleasure to know you. And I was talking to my husband. We're definitely going to come down and have a meal with you.
Likewise. I'll see you soon. Hopefully we'll be the cloud will pass by and
It will.
you get cleared out.